Hey everyone, it's Dr. Ramani. Welcome back to this YouTube channel where we take on all kinds of issues related to narcissism, narcissistic abuse, toxic relationships, situations, and people, with the hope that this content will help you clear up any confusion you have and also help you with your healing. And speaking of healing, I'm always going to mention it. Do have a healing program that actually does a much deeper dive into healing. If you go to the video notes, you can click on that link and it'll take you to the registration for that. If you do like this video, please give me that thumbs up. Tiny bit of validation goes a very long way for me. Now, today, this was almost, I couldn't even figure out a way to sort of describe this video succinctly. I want you to take a minute, maybe close your eyes and think about the time if you've gotten out of a narcissistic relationship. And I'm sure even if you're still in one, you've probably gotten out of one too. It could have been a friendship, could be a family relationship. I want you to close your eyes and think about the time when you were in that relationship and some of the friends and acquaintances and the people you knew. Then you got out of that relationship. And I'm guessing you haven't had that much to do with those people again. And then some time passes, you've healed, or healed quite a bit at least. And then you run into those people. And so that's what we're going to talk about. Like I said, there's very difficult, there's no great easy title for that one, but how do you go back and talk to those people who knew you before you made progress in healing from narcissistic abuse? Healing from narcissistic abuse is a process, a massive process, how the hell am I supposed to climb a mountain that steep process, you told me this was 3 steps forward, 2 steps back, and I am taking 2 steps forward and 5 steps back process. When you begin your healing process, you can't believe you will ever stop ruminating. You secretly still hold that hope that you'll be hoovered. You are contorted from trying to twist out of the trauma bonding. When you are in the healing, you have hope for your healing, but then that hope goes away a little when you take the bait or respond to the text or meet another narcissistic person who hurts you again. But I'm promising you, you will get to the other side. Healing and recovery from narcissistic abuse are a combination of pain, vulnerability, courage, discipline, confusion, anxiety, panic, grief, guilt, anger, and knowledge. That's a lot of stuff. I have seen people get to the other side. I've witnessed it. It's really quite a thing to behold. Sometimes I'm pretty confident I have gotten to the other side, but all of us who get to the other side of this healing process, we have setbacks. We still stop, we still take the bait, or we respond to the text message, or we feel guilty, or we feel the trauma bond tugging us back. This feeling, it's like when our coat gets stuck on a nail and we're like, why can't we get up? What's pulling me back? What's pulling us back is because we're human and we're empathic humans. But as part of that healing, we do get to indifference, at least indifference about some of the narcissists. I've seen it happen. I see it happen every single day. But over time, as you grow out of the narcissistic person, especially with those key and most impactful narcissistic people in your life, you recognize that to fully heal in an ideal world, you have as little exposure to the world that they were embedded in as possible. And that's not always easy if it's your family. And especially if you live near your family, it means having to find ways to distance from people that you may be expected to see regularly or you do see regularly. If it's an ex-partner, not only through children will you see them, but you may see mutual acquaintances at your children's school or still have mutual friends. And certainly your family knew them. So seeing your family means you have contact with someone who also knows them. If it's in a workplace, you may still live near colleagues and coworkers or still work in the same industry. Listen, many survivors can't get the kind of distance they want from that world that the narcissistic person was embedded in. However, There are also sort of peripheral players, right? Maybe not the direct family members that you have to deal with, or in-laws you might still have contact with, but people who knew you when you were in the narcissistic relationship. They may not be as significant to you, like maybe as a parent. And as you go through the challenges of distancing from or leaving a narcissistic relationship, and then try to start healing, you often do not have the time, energy, or bandwidth to talk to people other than the people you kind of have to, or people you maybe take care of or something. And you may find yourself growing distant from people who were a part of your life when you were in the narcissistic relationship, especially as you heal, and especially if they were at all part of gaslighting or enabling. As you heal and then you get stronger and you feel more resolved, maybe you even start to grow indifferent to the narcissist. And then you see a person from your old life. What's that like? Now, if you've been in that situation where you've left a narcissistic relationship and then you see someone who was part of a friend from that old life, drop it in the comments. I'd love to hear what some of your stories were. Now, when I have worked with or talked with people going through this, their responses are actually quite varied, but more than anything else, they recognize that their worldview has changed as they proceed through their healing journey. And they seem quite different when they see people from their past. Many people report that they don't want to see people from this time in their lives. They just don't want to go see those people anymore because they remind them or bring up memories of feeling limited and not feeling fully themselves, and just also all the bad memories of what happened in that relationship. But the pattern that we often observe is that when people run into people from their past who knew them when they were in the narcissistic relationship, it tends to be the sort of sense that you have changed so much, right? They sense that the you they knew isn't really here anymore. The fact is that you've been through something, you saw some stuff, right? Now you understand that stuff, that narcissistic experience you went through, and you feel as though you have a different worldview. And more often than not, that person from your past doesn't get it and may even feel somewhat disconnected from you. One of the legacies of healing from narcissistic abuse is that you see the world through a different filter. I'm not convinced it's a bad thing, but it's like this new filter is like a really sharp lens, like high definition. You see things really clearly. Sometimes it hurts to see them that clearly. And that can often leave survivors being more cautious, less lighthearted, definitely a little heavier, but certainly like you have been through something, because you have, and you understand something. And that really does mean that there's no going back, which means you will feel disconnected from those folks who were part of your life at that time and whom you may not have seen for a long time. Maybe not all of them, but it's not unusual to feel that disconnection from a lot of people from those times of your life. There is an old saying. Now, see, without even meaning to, I'm leaning into a proverb again, right? But that old saying is, you can't go home again. But that proverb is actually the opposite of the experience that survivors have. The idea that you can't go home again is often the idea that home has changed so much that you will no longer recognize it. For survivors of narcissistic abuse, I would argue that you changed so much through that process of healing that you no longer feel connected to a place, and perhaps even people, that was once called home, whatever home is. I can say as a survivor, when I meet people from earlier iterations of my life, from times when I was narcissistically abused, I'm disconnected. I don't talk much. It's awkward, maybe even feels a little bit hollow to me. I know that more than a few people from my past, they think I'm a cynic. They think I'm too pessimistic for my own good. Different things matter to me now than they did then. That is what survivorship does to us. Different things start to matter to us. And because of that, we may feel disconnected to people from that time in our lives. Now, some survivors are unsettled by this. They may go to a reunion, visit old friends from a different time in their lives, see old family, and no longer be able to play the part that was required for you to fit into that group. You recognize that playing the part was what put you at risk for a narcissistic relationship, or also what kept you stuck in that relationship. Once you stop playing the roles that everyone wants for you, you may no longer fit into the ensemble of people who may also be enabling. I think you can make the small talk when these blasts from the past come into your life. Yeah, ask about somebody's family or their work or where they live or how's their health. But survivors can actually be a little unsettling for the people who remain stuck themselves, people who may sort of still be stuck in that world you left. You may have moved forward, but they may remain, some of them may remain in narcissistic relationships themselves. You and your life become the path not taken. They may not have opened their eyes to these patterns or want to open their eyes or even really recognize what happened to you. Or they may not even be ready to understand what these relationships do to people. Or you may know that little tiny group of incredibly fortunate people who do not have narcissistic relationships in their lives. And I've got to tell you, I envy those people. But overall, when people see growth, it can sometimes make them feel uncomfortable because a lot of people stop growing. And if you've met one of these people from that past time in your life and you feel like the conversation is steering towards judgment, disengage. You don't need that. Healing and survivorship are about growth and forward motion, and about the painful realization that many relationships that we have are not built for growth. They are built, sadly, for stagnation. As you pursue growth and healing after narcissistic abuse, I want you to remember that you are doing something that many other people are too scared to do, and which is why I believe more people get stuck in these relationships than actually get out. It can be hard to feel like we cannot walk amongst the people in our past in the same way. And the fact is, though, all is not lost. The real keepers from any time in your life, they're going to see it. They'll see your growth and they'll get it and they will celebrate it and actually really, really want to spend time with you. You may actually become a beacon of hope to other people, of serenity, of courage, because you were willing to really, really take a difficult leap. To heal means to be uncomfortable and to keep growing. Too often the world and our past wants us to play the part we always have played, right? Once you give up that role and trust that your authentic self is all the world needs from you, so much is possible. And if some folks can't get down with that, you can gently and gracefully disengage. Listen, if you've created boundaries or gotten out of narcissistically abusive relationships, you've already done the hard part. But our histories are complicated, and when we go back and we see those people from the past, it can sometimes feel almost eerie how disconnected you feel. And it really is a wake-up call that actually that was never a healthy part of your life. It's not these people's faults, but the people who were in that part of your life, in some ways, they knew a different version of you, the part where your wingspan wasn't full. Now that it is, there's going to be different people in your life. That's what growth is. We keep on keeping on. Thanks again.